Peace. What's good? How y'all doing? Today is Monday, February 3rd, 2025. It's so interesting saying 2025 now. Like, wow. I pray that this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. Welcome to Headline News with ZaZa Ali, episode 67. This is my news segment. It's bi-weekly news segment highlighting local, national, and global events, particularly those being censored by mainstream media. Headline News with ZaZa Ali airs exclusively on the ZaZaAli.com membership channel. And you can see I have their episode 67 live on YouTube. Obviously, you're not going to see this live. I was intending on going live on Sunday, but circumstances and situations, it just didn't work out. And I'm glad it didn't, because I decided to split the episode up. I know that a lot of you guys are more particular to shorter form content. And so I'm going to split this episode up into three, maybe four videos. This is part one. I've been wanting to, I've been talking about the situation in the Congo and Sudan, and even Burkina Faso, Haiti as well, for some time now in my episodes. But I wanted to, obviously have a conversation with you guys about it where it is right now. But the part two is going to be about the DEI situation, the Black rage, the anti-Black energy, all of that. And then part three is going to be about the Grammys, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Kendrick Lamar, the Super Bowl, the NFL performance, and something that I see, my foresight sees in terms of the connection to Diddy and how all of that stuff played out and what's getting ready to unfold. So I'm going to I'm going to record and post all three of those separately within this next day. They're all done. I just need to record. It's a little bit more work, but it's all good. There's a couple of things I wanted to say before I get into this. February 7th, I am 4 days away from my campaign ending, and that you can still take advantage and get $50, which is an incredible saving on my an annual membership pass. You'll have access to all of my headline news episodes. This is episode 67, so I have 66 more of these, everywhere from 1 hour to 2 hour to 3.5 hour. I think 3 hours, I think, was the longest one I ever did. But like real in-depth analysis about culture, about history, about news, about, quantifying what's happening in modern times and making it make sense, as you're going to see with the rest of this conversation here. So shout out to all of my current members, that either the new signups or, who just purchased the pass. It's not a subscription. It's just a pass for 12 months. So all of the new members, as well as all of my existing members, a lot of you guys really showed up for me in this campaign, and I'm very, very grateful. February 7th will be the final day to take advantage of that extremely low pricing. And then on Sunday, I was also supposed to do the group meditation, but for reasons I'm not going to get into, I didn't do that either. So I think what I'm going to do is just record a meditation. Part one will be different breathing regimens, and then part two will be an actual meditation. And then that way it'll be on my YouTube channel. And so whenever you guys want to come back to that and access that, it'll be there. And I'll be posting a version of that in the membership channel as well. So I'll be doing that before February 7th, as well as I'm going to do it, the Hollywood, the finale, at least part one, before February the 7th, because it's already done. I just need to sit down and record it. So, okay. This part one of this episode 67 is particular to the Congo, Haiti, Burkina Faso, and the Sudan, right? I have been continuously talking about this in my episodes, and it's interesting now that we have this dynamic with Black America, Native, Indigenous America, Black Americans, however you want to conceive it, that have this sort of anti-Africa sentiment. I don't understand that. And even if you think that Africans are a different tribe from the original indigenous people in America, if you love God and if you love and appreciate humanity and life, I just don't understand what all of the extra like anti anybody, anything melanated is at this point. Haven't we all been through enough? So, because I'm a student of history, I've always had a very strong affinity and love and appreciation for African culture. And when I say that, I understand that is super, super multi-layered, and it's a continent, and there's nations and cultures and tribes and all of that good stuff. But like, I have found tremendous value in not only from the historical point, but even up till today, which is one of the main reasons why I keep stay abreast with what's going on in the continent on the continent for multiple reasons. But I am not on like at this point. I'm on God's side. There is a very strategic, staunch agenda playing out right now. That is slated to be fulfilled by 2030. So there's a 2025 to 2030 time clock that's happening right now that many, if not most people, are not aware of. I am. And so everything that I'm going to talk about today and in all of these episodes, including the whole situation with Black Hollywood and celebrities and how they're using that right now to keep people you know, totally fascinated and immersed in that world at the same time that there's extreme suffering and chaos and dysfunction and instability and scarcity, at least the illusion of scarcity. And the illusion makes it real. That's why it's dangerous. But the condition, the living conditions, especially in America, right, for the average person, and then you take that around the world, and so you have this glitz and glamour in one regard playing itself out at the same time as ashes, you know, the Grammys at the same time as the ashes right up the street. It's very Hunger Game-ish. So that's what I'm saying. I'm on God's side. So if it's my people from the continent, Africa, and they with that vibration and they with that frequency, and then my people from South America and my people, obviously my people, God's people here in America, who I strongly and staunchly represent. But all of us around the world, that's why I wrote a textbook about melanated people around the world. There's, you know, levels to this, and that's not a saying that from a in a haughty perspective. It's just the truth. So um when I say America's under divine judgment, and we all kind of can, you know, we can grapple our mind around that because we know what the United States government is capable, what they've done, etc. Is Africa under divine judgment? I think that's a question for us to ponder. I'm going to put that out into the ethers, and I'm going to kind of, you know, hone back in on that through this conversation, to sort of test the boundaries of what that could possibly mean.
Rwandan-backed rebels M23 claim they have captured Goma, which is the largest city in eastern Congo. Congo's government said the rebel was a declaration of war, and the United Nations has described mass panic amongst Goma's 2 million residents. The rebels' offensive threatens to dramatically worsen what is already one of Africa's longest wars and further displace civilians. But where did this all start? This conflict goes back to the Hutu and Tutsi, who are two very similar ethnic groups living in neighboring Rwanda. The groups had fought several times since the fall of the Tutsi monarchy in 1959, and this culminated in 1994 when 800,000 members of the Tutsi minority community were killed by ethnic Hutu extremists in what was later recognized around the world as a genocide. 2 million people were displaced as a result, with over 1 million people from both sides ending up in the Congo. Now, over the next decade, Rwanda fought multiple wars with Congo, targeting Hutu militant groups and even backed Tutsi rebels who destabilized the Congolese government. By the end of March 2009, the Congolese government promised those Tutsi rebels integration within the military and civilian institutions, in return for them re-entering the country's democracy as a political party. Which brings us to the rebel group M23. Now, M23 was formed in 2012, named after that 2009 peace accord signed on the 23rd of March. The group accused the government of Congo of failing to implement that peace deal. They vowed to defend Tutsi interests, particularly against ethnic Hutu militias. M23 have waged rebellion since its formation. They took Goma once before in 2012. After a decade of inactivity, the group resurfaced in late 2021, with M23 taking more and more territory in northern Kivu. Now, according to United Nations experts, the group has received increasing support from the Rwandan government. Rwanda has denied such support. Yesterday, the president of Kenya, head of the East African Community of Nations, expressed dismay and concern.
We do not see, from where I sit, a possibility of a military solution to the challenges that face Eastern DRC.
The UN has warned over a third of the population in Goma's province are displaced, which will only be exacerbated by the capture of the city, with hundreds fleeing. Jackson and his family fled Goma during fighting in 2012, but this time they've chosen to stay.
Sitting here, I can hear the sound of bombs, the crackle of falling bullets. We decided to stay at home, but as long as there are wars, those who flee the war can also die or live a bad life. That's why we thought it was better to stay at home than to die fleeing a war. If we're going to die, it's better to die here.
But this isn't just another humanitarian crisis in a troubled corner of Africa, because this matters to all of us. And why? Because Eastern Congo has some of the richest reserves of critical minerals in the world. Almost every smartphone, smart fridge, electrical vehicle, solar panel, and wind turbine would not work without the cobalt, tantalum, copper, and rare earth elements mined in Eastern Congo. That is what is truly at the heart of this conflict and why it's getting the attention of major powers. It's also at the heart of the human tragedy in Congo, as people are uprooted again and again in wars for control of this vital region.
I mean, that was just so, the way he said why it matters to all of us, not just the local people there, and started mentioning the minerals and the technology aspect of it. Like, that was just so, that was such bad taste. I don't even like, and this is part of what I'm going to get into in just a second when I get to the the natural resources element of this. But just to reiterate what he said, this ties back to the Hutu and Tutsi genocide that killed 800,000. There were 2 million displaced at that point, and then over 1 million migrated to the Congo and settled there, right? And then eventually a faction split off. Almost said split off. A militant group called M23 has taken control of one of the largest cities in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The group has been active for years, and it is reportedly backed by Rwandan's government. Although the Rwandan government denies this, Kenya's president has called on all sides to come to a peaceful solution, saying that any resolution cannot be achieved by fighting. Now, if anybody is listening to this, that's in this part of the world, that's in Rwanda, that's, if anything that I say is not true to the reality there, then I always stand to be corrected. You can provide the information, the proper assessment, if you will, in the comments, and I'll pin your comment if it's something that I feel like is, valuable to the conversation. But we're all on the outside looking in, right? And I keep, hearing and seeing and understanding the urgency for all of us to be talking about this, the urgency for all of us to be emphasizing this point. So that's what we're doing here, right? And hopefully the context, not hopefully, knowingly, with the intention of the consciousness of raising our level of language and conversation, and how we're all talking about this and handling this on a, not just Africa, but all of us. Again, going back to my point, there's a clock ticking 2025 to 2030. And I'm not saying that to provoke fear. I'm saying that to provoke and inspire a sovereignty consciousness. More on that later. So I'm going to do a separate video, one of my spiritual kung fu videos. But This map shows the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and you can see how large it is. And then it's surrounded by South Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, Angola, the Central African Republic, Cameroon. And then Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, not too far off in the distance. But this is where the time where, when Gaddafi was trying to create the United States of Africa, and that whole sentiment so that Africa could take on a position of sovereignty as a continent, right? As a whole, entire nation isn't big enough word, but you get what I'm saying. As one full force entity. So I wonder what the position of all of the nations surrounding the Congo, what's their position? Is this something that is in the headline news there? Is this something that the people are conscientious and aware of? I know a lot of these places are not, I'll say I know, but I can't say I know. I know there's highly developed areas of Africa, and then there's not so highly developed areas, right? And I know that all of the countries have highly developed and not so developed areas, right? So I wonder if the highly or more developed areas are cognizant of what's happening in the Congo. And if the leaders and the thinkers in those areas and the military mights and all of that are coming together to try to solve that problem and solve that issue. And I'm saying that because, as I've said with Haiti, as I've said with Chicago, Black people in Chicago, as I've said with Native Americans, the Native indigenous people in America, and all around the world, there's no savior coming to or for any of us. The irony about how much we talk about the Congo and how rich it is, which I'm going to talk about in just a second in terms of the natural resources, we talk more about cobalt than we do the people. When's the last time you heard a reporting on the ingenuity and the creativity of the Congolese culture or spirit or women? And I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but again, we talk way more about the natural resources that are pulled from the land than we do the people, because we value them more than we do those things, more than we do the people. And guess what? It's a high probability that the Congolese people value those natural resources more than they value themselves as well. That's an earmark for Native people all around the world. Not all of us, but a lot of us. Look how disconnected so many of us in America are from Mother Nature. The hunt for high-tech industry minerals reignites conflict in Central Africa. The mining town of Rubaya in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo even has the feel of the Wild West, complete with occasional gunfire over disputed claims. 9 months before M23, the rebel group backed by Rwanda seized the city of Goma last week. Its fighters took Rubaya's coltan mines, the dull black metallic ore is refined to tantalum, a heat-resistant powder used in capacitors for high-tech devices. The mines are a cash cow. Since taking Rubaya, the group is estimated by the United Nations to have earned 650,000 euro a month by imposing taxes on the coltan trade. At the same time, each month, 150 tons of coltan are smuggled over the border to be sold by Rwanda. UN experts reported in late December that M23's capture of Rubaya was primarily motivated by a strategic need to monopolize the only viable route for mineral evacuation. And so here you see in true to life form, a la the Jackal from Confessions of an Economic Hitman, right? Hopefully you guys have read that book. You got to read that book. Classic. But you see, if the M23 gang, which they are a gang slash semi-revolutionaries, I don't know, but this is the irony of this between the M23 gang, the gangs in the Sudan, or that the revolting, I'll say, in Sudan, the gangs in Haiti. you're not really clear what it is that they want. It's this, I've been scratching through this, trying to, you know what I mean, reporting on this consistently for some time now. And it's really not even clear what they want. So according to this article, they wanted to monopolize a particular route in order to make 650,000 euros a month, right? And by imposing taxes on the coltan trade. So if they're making 650,000 euros a month, how much are the people that they're selling it to? Because you notice the people that they're selling it to aren't referenced in the article, right? So between 3,000 and 4,000 Rwandan troops were in eastern DRC supervising and supporting the M23 fighters, the expert said. Now, the capture of Goma gives the M23 control and its Rwandan sponsors even greater control over an area rich in not only coltan, but also tungsten and gold. Deeper in DRC are huge deposits of cobalt, tin, and copper, and it has worsened what was already one of the world's worst humanitarian crises in an area blighted by war for decades. More than 500,000 people were displaced by the fighting in January alone, and the UN says at least 700 people were killed in the fight for Goma in the past week, with 2,800 wounded. God made man, and when I say man, I mean man, woman, and child. God made humanity to toil and to till the earth, and for us to bring out and cultivate the highest possible value in the natural resources. That's why I say, is Africa under divine judgment? Because we're talking about people that are sitting on some of the most wealthiest, abundant land in the world in terms of the natural resources as it pertains to this world, right? If we were talking about natural resources as it pertains to herbs and you know, specific things that can cure certain diseases that humanity has been plagued with, we might be looking at a completely different area of the world. We might be looking at somewhere on the continent too, though. So it's our concept of value. We value the phone. We value the electric car. We value these things. So that's why it's particular to this part of the world. The whole entire planet is filled with abundance, filled with natural resources. If these people would just get out of our way. So imagine these rebels, these gangs are out here making 650,000 euro a month. Imagine how many billions upon billions are being made. And then you got these random regular brothers and sisters tilling in this mud looking for copper and coltan. Putin says ties with Africa is a priority for Russia. I put that there to remind myself because Putin is playing a very strategic, balanced role in the big scheme of things. It looks like he's a glitch in the matrix. All you got to do is go search online and search what the CVD-19 shot statistics in Russia is. 88 million. 88 million. So they're playing at a different level. But anyway, let me continue. So, okay. This was what I was talking about when in 2020 and 2021 first kicked off, right? I'm going to try to read this without saying the wrong thing to get the video flagged or taken down. If by chance they do take it down, I'll just put it on my website and put up a clip, and then I'll send you guys directly to my website to watch it in full. But I'm looking at the situation with the Sudan. I'm looking at the situation with the Congo. I'm looking at the situation in Haiti right now, right? This is an article from May 29th of 2003. It's entitled Electronic. If I pause when I say something or if I spell the word, it's because I'm trying to get around the algorithm, all right? Don't think I'm slow. I'm not slow. I'm just trying to talk in a certain type of way where I don't have to deal with flagging and all that stuff. Like, censorship has scarred me thoroughly. Trust me, I'm still traumatized by all of it, still trying to recover. But this article is from an operation titled Operation Crimson, and then MIST. And it is referencing the Rwandan genocide, which we just talked about, the gentleman referenced in the video, with between the Hutu and the Tutsi, which killed 800,000, right? And I remember watching the movie, which I'm going to play a trailer of that in just a second. I first learned about it, really learned about it. I had, kind of heard about it in passing in history classes and whatnot. Never did any real in-depth research about it. But when I watched the movie, I went and really did the research on it. So yeah, they do shit and then make movies about it. So let me stay on point. Let me read the article. During the making sure I'm on the right section. Okay. During the late afternoon of April 6, 1994, a hail of cannon shells tore through the fuselage of a commercial airliner flying overhead central Rwanda. Several seconds later, the blazing plane exploded on impact with the ground, killing President Habyarimana of Rwanda, President Ntariamira of Burundi, and most of their senior government officials. In that fatal millisecond of time, the entire political command structure of Central Africa was decapitated, leaving the way for Operation CR, that whole thing I said before, the most obscene terminal mind control experiment ever mounted by the United States of America against a sovereign nation. That sea mist has been used again recently on a smaller scale in Iraq, is now beyond a doubt. I'm trying to say this so I don't get the page. I want you guys to be able to see the video without any issues. YouTube be tripping, man. It's artificial intelligence now. So it's kind of like trying to outsmart the computer when you're talking and trying to, anyway. It's all good. That's the beauty of having my own site, because you can't cancel me. I'll just put it up on my site and then you guys can go watch it there. But as I'm bringing this somewhere, so just stick with me. As Habyarimana and his colleagues made their death dive, a small group of American men and women lounged around in a large hut at the edge of a discreet gravel airstrip a few miles from the Rwandan capital, Kigali, hope I'm saying that right, temporary home for their three unmarked. Now, this is the name of a plane. I'm going to give it a paraphrase. You can see the name of it on the screen, but I'm just going to call it Charlie 130. All right, that's the name of the plane. All crew members carried forged credentials showing them as, this language is super funny, I can't, this is too long to spell, atmospheric, right? I'm pausing on that word because that's one of those words. And then researchers employed by an authentic civilian American agency, but these were only for emergency identification if one of the aircraft was found to make an unscheduled landing on unfriendly territory. For all practical security purposes, neither they nor their large aircraft were even in Africa. When news of the presidential crash came in over the VHF radio, one of the Charlie 130 planes were swiftly prepared for takeoff. The flight engineer checked the attachment of the RATO packs, while the scientists made final adjustments to a large micro and then wave and then dish mounted on the rear loading ramp of the aircraft. If this was the strange and esoteric piece of equipment alone that would directly contribute to the deaths. So mind you, we're talking about something that is attached to the plane that's a micro and then wave and then beaming frequencies and then contributing to the deaths of more than 1 million African civilians during the 100 days that followed. Though completely silent in operation, the single micro and then wave and then dish had more killing potential than a whole squadron of a Charlie 130 Spectre, GUN, and then ships, armed with 50 Gatling cannons. Though officially tagged an experiment, none of those present had any doubt that this was merely a cosmetic cover for the gruesome operational work ahead. Each member had been carefully vetted and then vetted again by U.S. intelligence to ensure they had the quote right stuff and were philosophically committed to two objectives. Now that takes me back to what I said about the jackal, because that's exactly what they're talking about. They screen these people out and look for certain attributes and characteristics to know if they are qualified, or should I say spiritually bankrupt enough to be able to go into different places around the world and do this type of stuff and know that you're doing this and still not intentionally, but the intentions are the people who give the orders. These people are just following orders, but still it takes a certain lack of heart and consciousness, right? So there's more to this article, but I'm going to show the trailer now with this in context, and there's more to this I'm going to read in just a second, but I want to show the trailer of the movie with Don Cheadle. Because again, they do shit and then make movies about it. And once I learned about this and I went back and watched that movie again, it had a whole different vibration.
My name is Paul Ross.
So you see why, and I'm going to finish this article, but this is sort of been my modus operandi. Let me turn my frequency back on. This has sort of been my modus operandi, how I approach like my research and the things that I'm, curious about, or that I teach about, or that I try to figure out. Because if they have been, and they have been, using a scientific and technological, and dare I say biological, talked about all that stuff in my book, Black Matters, the first one, volume 1. But if they have been infiltrating African people through these means of war, don't we need people who are studying the things that they have been projecting and implementing against African people so that we can stop being a victim of this? And if it's beaming frequencies, then don't we need somebody that understands how those frequency beams affect humanity and the things that can help us navigate that, or dare I say stop that? Isn't that what we were charged as the stewards of the planet, the landlords of the planet? We act like tenants. They've turned Africans out, not all Africans, but in this particular situation with the Congo, where there is enough resources for the Congo to be wealthy beyond anything any of us can possibly imagine. And the people live there and are not in a position to capitalize on the wealth of the land for whatever the reasons are. We can name all of the alphabet boys. But still, the land was entrusted upon us. The land was entrusted upon you. The stewardship of the land was entrusted upon the African people, just like the people in America, just like the people in South America. And there's a particular aspect of that's the culture that is indigenous to those lands. And then there is a global aspect to that, where all of us are supposed to be the stewards of the land. Meaning, if I go to Hawaii, I'm gonna start littering just because I'm not in California anymore. Like, I protect the area of my neighborhood, and then anywhere else I go, I don't care. No, that's not how that works. We're all supposed to be stewards of the land. As the Hercules engines started with a roar, American agents in Kigali were working alongside local civil servants and members of the Rwandan Security Service, ramping up public suspicion about foul play in the presidential crash. Urged on by corrupt officialdom, Hutu tribesmen started marching on Tutsi tribesmen and threw a few rocks at them. Innocent enough at the outset, although with a few nasty machete cuts here and there. But then the Charlie 130 made a carefully calculated pass, talking about a plane here, directly over the advancing Hutu, and they suddenly went berserk. Eyes glazed. The mood of the Hutu crowd went from simple anger to uncontrollable rage, and within minutes, hundreds of assorted Tutsi body parts were flying through the air. Okay, pause. Somebody's listening to this and thinks that it sounds absurd. When you understand what these people are capable of, and we're gonna put all of this into context because again, it's not about fear-based consciousness. This is about looking this in the eye for what it is, so that we don't get caught up in the matrix. The splintering is happening in mass. I mean, it's the number of places and diversions and directions and onslaught of fear-based consciousness and projection in the collective consciousness right now is insane. Oh, I can't wait to do this DEI video. I might record it tonight, because how in the hell are y'all still letting these people play y'all in 2025? I don't understand. How are you still dancing to the tune of Satan's drum? I don't understand. Left or right, black or white, Republican or Democrat. Okay, we are way beyond that. How are you still letting these people fuck with your mind? I will never understand, excuse my language. Let me stay on topic. What the Hercules crew had just achieved has been an open secret since the late 50s. The 50s. When researchers accidentally discovered that there is a precise control brainwave for literally everything we do and for everything we feel. The problem back then was that each of these control brainwaves, rage, fear, panic, lethargy, vomiting, and so on, had to be transmitted with an accuracy taken out to 3 decimal places, or they simply did not work at all. But as the years rolled by, and with the advent of transistors and micropressors, the operational application of precise control brainwaves became practical reality. Now, let me run this back real quick. I want to make sure we all understand what they're saying. There is a precise control brainwave for literally everything we do and everything we feel. The problem back then was that it had to be transmitted with an accuracy taken out to the 3 decimal places, or they simply did not work at all. So you had to be that close and precise to the actual brainwave frequency, which I would imagine there's a dynamic of that is particular in the collective consciousness, but then there's an aspect of that that's an individual equation, because everybody, it doesn't work on everybody. It never works on everybody, right? So that's why in the situation you had people who were fighting, and then you had the people who were in the hotel fighting for their lives and just trying to get out of the mix. The innocent civilians, they were in proximity of this beam as well. But the pre-existing condition was anger. This is why I keep saying we got to stay off the fear vibration. We got to stay off the anger vibration. We got to stay off the protest frequency. I'm not telling nobody to not protest. I'm saying the 5% of the 5%, or the people that are striving to be in a certain bandwidth of consciousness, vibrationally wise, for the sanity of your energetic field. Listen, let me stay on point. It is important to note here that the lethal trick repeated hundreds of times by the Charlie 130 in Rwanda during April 8th to July 1994. Wait, repeated, did it say? It said repeated hundreds of times? Was not classic mind control in the ultimate conspiratorial meaning of the term, where people claim to hear complicated messages inside their heads, or where it is feared that almost said it. You can see the letters. Well, probably not reading from the screen, but anyway, one of the alphabet boys intend to turn everyone into helpless zombies by implanting electronic chips in their arms or necks. What the Charlie 130 crew were actually engaged in was electromagnetically augmenting a pre-existing state. Remember that the agents and security service personnel first had to point the Hutu tribesmen in the direction of the Tutsi, induce reasonable anger, and make sure they were appropriately armed. Only then could the Charlie 130 go to work with the precise control brainwave of rage, augmenting or exasperating, I'll use that word, although I can see my Wi-Fi thing keeps going down. I wonder if it has anything to do with what I'm talking about. I just saw it flash on my screen. Where was I at? Upgrading and thus upgrading crowd behavior from that of angry demonstrators to uncontrollable genocidal maniacs. Although not classic, this was and is unquestionably mind control for the simple reason that external means were being used to force an irresistible change of behavior. Now, let's step out of Rwanda for a second and think about somebody setting a human being on fire just out of the blue on a train in public in front of a bunch of people. Remember back in the days when the Islamic terrorists used to go in buildings and somebody would have a bomb strapped to them and then they would blow themselves up. Remember that? Who were those people really? So much of what's happening in the collective consciousness right now, how much of it is organic and how much of it is, because part of this is energy harvesting too, but contrived consciousness, that synthetic war on organic life. This is another representation of that. So when you look at the situation happening right now in the Sudan, when you look at the situation happening in the Congo, these are African men. These are Sudanese men. These are Congolese men that are inflicting this terror. Yes, they're being armed by ... Yes, they're being paid by ... 100%. But it's still the people who look like them doing this to them. So there's to be a strong cry and a strong plea for everybody that is bringing this to the forefront and talking about this conversation, that we start emphasizing that. The same way if we are appealing to, our men and our brothers and the staying home and staying in the household and fortifying the family and being there and playing that role and playing your position. That's manhood, right? So it's interesting because I don't really hear that in the collective narrative. It's like we talk about the alphabet boys and 100% we should. But again, the question, I'm looking at everything like, where is God in this? Why is God allowing this to happen? All saviors are all gods beside God, all demigods, all false idols are being destroyed. And if you are living on one of the most prominent, wealthy pieces of land in the world, and have allowed and continue to allow the rape and the robbery of your land, and then to implement chaos and rape on the women and children of your nation, I have to ask you, is the Congo under divine judgment? Because The R word part of it is, where does that come in at? Okay, they want you to shut this down so you can get control of this mind and so that you can, take over this mind and make, you know what I mean? Like all the semantics about all the stuff on the ground, right? The reason for it. It's usually money, right? It's always bigger than money, but it's usually money on a certain level. So all of that goes without saying. But what's up with the R wording of the women? What word is that part of the orders? So the continuation of what I've been saying, that everything that's out of alignment with the divine feminine is it's coming to a very feverish pitch right now all over the world. This ain't just the continent. I'm just focusing on the continent, on these specific areas, I should say, right now. And obviously the goal of this is to inspire the, you know what I mean? Like, again, there's no savior coming. We in America, living next to these people. When I say these people, I'm talking about the people that everybody in the world is complaining about. It's the West, it's America, it's the American government. Okay, so what do you think it's like for us here? But the goal of this conversation of all of this is not to be afraid. It's like, oh, okay, this is why these things are happening. No, we're not talking about primitive, inhumane beings. We're talking about victims of technological and scientific and biological warfare for a long time now. You said 1950. These are all recent articles, the most recent being June 19, 2004. Drones have been transformed. Drones have transformed blood delivery in Rwanda. From A to O positive blood delivery via drones in Rwanda. Using drones to deliver blood products in Rwanda. Deliveries by drones delivering blood have revolutionized medical care for women giving birth at Rwanda's largest refugee camp. My spidey senses went off when I saw this. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? My spidey senses went off. And then in me, I was looking, I don't know, where I started at a certain point and ended up at another point. And that the other point that's relative to all of this is about acoustic weapons, because I was remembering the Michael Grant, what's his name, Michael Grant? I think it was St. Louis, the brother who got killed. God, I forget his name. It was weird. They had some weird black band pick him up, and it was Michael something. I want to say it was St. Louis. It's been so many, and it's been so many years. But I remember in the protests at that time, they were using sound weapons against the people, and let it be known in the public, media, in that they were doing this. Right? It wasn't no major outcry. Nobody really, said anything. They said it, reported it, and then it was what it was. So I found a site that talks about acoustic weapons. You can see the image on the advertising. This is on the site, okay? This is the advertising. Like, acoustic or sonic weapons, also known as long-range acoustic devices, sound cannons, hailing devices, sonic bullets, and noise bazookas, are devices that deliver very loud sound over long distances. They can be designed to deliver painful, audible, or inaudible sound waves, or to act more like very loud voice amplifiers to deliver voice messages or other sounds. I'm sorry, what? To act more like very loud voice amplifiers to deliver voice messages or other sounds. A different form of acoustic weapon emits very high-pitched sounds that are audible and painful to younger people, especially teenagers and those in their 20s, while leaving older people, 30 and older, unaffected. This ultrasonic device, sometimes branded the Mosquito, is used in several countries, primarily in private security settings, despite ongoing litigation. It has been used as a deterrent device by the British police to disperse unruly, underage crowds with a shrill sound, and by civilians for personal use since 2008. As marketing of these devices is unregulated, they have the potential to expand their market share rapidly. Now, I'm saying this for multiple reasons. This is not just happening to Africa. This thing is playing out in so many tentacles around the world, in so many levels, in so many layers. And the varying degrees of how the technology can be applied, from an acoustic sound weapon that can put out a beam of frequency that only teenagers and 20-year-olds are affected by, and if you're 30 or older you're unaffected. Excuse me, I'm sorry, what? And then project a sound into somebody's brain. Now we got all of these people talking about electronic harassment and being stalked by, and people thinking they're crazy because there's voices in their head, but they've been telling us for the longest that they have the technology to put voices in people's heads. I'm just saying, what's really going on in the Congo? Now, this is the way they're going to roll it out in America. These towers on the left-hand side. 800,000, you say? Yeah, 800,000 in America. That's when that process is complete, which started, ironically, a lot of that started in 2020, ironically. 800,000 across the country. In 2020, in particular 2020, 2021, this is when I started hearing them talking more about these acoustic weapons. An article from June 2020, Portland police deployed a long-range acoustic device. Now, mind you, Portland was one of the epicenters of the Black Lives Matter, super left, super radical left, all of that. So why are they using this on them? According to all of the super Trump fans, the left is Satan. Why are they using the weaponry on the super left? Because that's a program. Police argue LRAD sonic weapons can't be considered weapons, although they can permanently damage your inner ear, making one go deaf. I'm sorry, what? New York PD, NYPD use of sound cannons, right? Acoustic weapons, etc. So
the two transit centers in Brink have no space to accommodate more displaced people from Sudan. They were supposed to host a few thousand for a short while. Now 16,000 are camped here. New arrivals are coming to this. Amal Yusuf and her family fled from Jazeera State, where fighting has intensified.
We moved a lot in Sudan. We were afraid of the bullets. We were afraid of the rapid support forces. They were killing us.
Her daughter Moram was a medical student back home. She wants to complete her studies in a third country.
A big problem in this place. We have nothing to eat. We have nothing to live. This is we had this place because of this.
More than 120,000 people have crossed the border since November. Many are coming in through informal border crossings where they're living rough with very little to survive on.
Some of the refugees are sleeping here because they simply no space. Those we've spoken to say that they want to stay closer to their homes, no matter how desperate the situation is here.
Hussein Gaduwel took 5 days to get here from Sennar region, all the while evading security checks manned by armed men.
The plane was bombing people. The rapid support forces were killing people. We had to run. We were jumping over dead bodies as we fled.
Many here are hoping that the crisis will be resolved at some point. but they also know it could be months, maybe even years, before they return to their homes. Catherine Soy, Al Jazeera, Rank, South Sudan.
Again, there's no clear message of what exactly it is that they want. Why Sudanese democracy activists are now backing the army as Sudan's RSF surrounds Darfur's El Bashir, ethnic killings feared, dozens killed as fierce fighting rages in South and West Sudan, how a camel herder became leader of a rampaging gang accused of genocide. This is this is what I'm saying. And Sudan at one point was a spiritual epicenter. I mean, the pyramids, the irony. So again, that the false idol element of this has to be addressed. How did we get in a position in the motherland where the continuity of dictators and despots and people that could be controlled by the alphabet boys are in control? At what point does it end? This is why the divine feminine is so critical and so important right now, because we don't understand the subtleties of war. The same thing here in Sudan, in a different way. Obviously, the logistics of it are different. But again, there's very similar things, especially the timeline. Haiti is another another place that I see the parallels in what's happening in these places, and there's something else going on. We talk about melanin being a superconductor and melanin being a powerful, sort of connectivity, if you will. Don't quote me on that because I can say that in a better way, but I don't want to go off into the science of melanin, which I will do. So let me stay on track. Melanin can work against you if it's not properly nurtured and cultivated. I'll give a quick example. In a city like Chicago, in the summertime, very high percentages of killings consistently in Chicago, summertime, high sun, melanin is at a higher percentage during that time, and not understanding that increase in melanin and the vibration of that increase calls for an increase in productivity, calls for an increase in creativity, calls for an increase in expansion. And when it does not have those things, and when those things aren't being properly cultivated, and you add Schlitz malt liquor or Mad Dog 2020 or Cheetos red dye hot chips or boxed macaroni and cheese, you get what I'm saying? You add those things into the equation, and now the melanin is, maybe working against you is not the right terminology, but it's in that direction. I can find a better way to say that. I will when I do. It being a superconductor, as any superconductor, I would imagine, it can work, in the direction that you want it, or it can work in the programming. See, I'm about to do exactly what I said I didn't want to do about melanin. So let me stay on point. So Haiti, which I've also been very tapped into and paying attention to, because I see the same things happening there, the same thing. And it's not just happening in Africa, actually, it's happening in a multitude of other places. But armed gangs killed 50 in an attack near Haiti's capital. At least 50 people were killed and dozens injured in an attack by armed gangs in Kinskov, a town located 10 kilometers or 6.2 miles from Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, according to local media. The assault, described as a large-scale operation to seize control of the area, also saw 100 homes burned, according to an independent civil society organization. Haiti National Police spokesman Michael Ange Luis Janet said security forces killed 20 gang members during the operation and assured that measures were being taken to restore order. Reinforcements were sent to the town after local security forces were overwhelmed. Haiti, a nation of over 11 million people, has been grappling with political, economic, and security crisis for years. Armed gangs now control an estimated 80% of Port-au-Prince, and violence continues to escalate. In 2024 alone, more than 5,000 people were killed in gang-related attacks. Imagine LA being 80% taken over by gangs. You're talking about the purge. The country's instability has led to frequent leadership changes. Prime Minister Ariel Henry resigned on April 25th, 2024, amid the crisis, and the Transitional Council appointed Gary Camille as his successor. Camille was replaced by businessman Alex Didier Fils-Aimé On. He needs an acronym. On November 11th. Okay, so a couple of things before I forget. The first thing is, please don't think that I'm trying to justify or make excuses for any of these, like the gangs in Haiti or the gangs in the Congo or the gang, like not at all. You see, I just said the conversation about holding African men and all of these different nations accountable and like that becoming a part of the mainframe in the consciousness. Like what is happening that is provoking or inspiring or devolving certain aspects of the man on the continent in certain areas. And it's not just these areas, because there is a situation that happened in Ethiopia recently that I had found out a lot of stuff from finding this out with this young girl who was sexually that, and then ended up dead. And you know what I mean? So this is happening, and I'm not saying that's not happening everywhere else, but we're talking about the continent right now. So what's in the water? What's in the food? What's in the spices? What's in the technology? What's in the towers? What's going on? This is not how God formed and fashioned us to be. You say Africa is the motherland, so in my opinion, Africa should be setting the standard, right? We having big girl, big boy conversations, because there's no savior coming for any of us. We have to be the saviors. The spark of genius and brilliance and right intention and courage is good for the Congo to get out of the situation it's in, is gonna have to come from the Congo. Just like Sudan, just like Haiti, just like Jamaica, just like Oakland, just like Chicago. And I say that in terms of America, the state aspect, but then the country aspect. I could just say come from America. But the spark is going to have to come from those from the experience. That's the yes, hold all the alphabet boys accountable 100%. Yes, bring attention. Yes, support the people on the ground that are doing what needs to be done. But the people are the natural resource that everybody is neglecting while we keep talking about electric cars. There's nothing that has been created that compares to the human being. Not in third dimensional reality. I beg your pardon. And we can take the digital realm and artificial intelligence and that God that now has been a new God on the scene that everybody is worshiping. It's fascinating and interesting, yes. But there's so much to explore and experience as a human being, not just being a human being, but experience as a human being in the world. We haven't even scratched the surface. And now they're telling you to worship a state of consciousness in a computer? Who is your God? And we can ask that to Akon too. I'm going to be talking about him when I do the finale video. But we can pose that to him too, because we know he has the goals of opening a cryptocurrency-based city in Senegal. And I hope and pray that it's for all the right reasons. And I hope and pray that it's not, in his face on the front and China on the back. And I hope and pray that it turns out to be everything that everything wonderful, beauty, shine, shiny Wakanda forever, all of that. But there's some questions that need to be asked. And I'm not going to get into that, but I wanted to emphasize this point about Haiti and over 5,000 killed in gang-related attacks since 2024, 80% of Port-au-Prince going under rule. Haiti is one of the most beautiful places. It's stunningly beautiful. It's tropical. The land produces food with no problems. How is it that you could be charged with this land? It was given to you. It was bestowed upon you and your ancestors and your children. It was, again, I gave you everything. The devil gave you nothing. The Christ consciousness, the Jesus element, the Muhammad element, the Buddha element for Haiti is going to have to come from Haiti.
After being sworn in as the president.
So let me pause this. Hold on.
After being sworn in as the president of.
Just want to pause. Okay. I wanted to close out with this video in particular about this brother, the leader of Burkina Faso, who I have been watching and showing and, sharing information about him, who is a very beautiful, powerful brother. And I'm very excited to see what he has planned, is planning, and has made manifest in Burkina Faso. And I hope that it inspires a spirit of ingenuity and warrior and, just the powerful essence of, there's the continent of Africa, and then there's the Burkina Faso and Kenya and Ghana and, Nigeria, and all of these beautiful cultures and textures of the continent of Africa. I hope he inspires and lights a fire underneath all of them. But see, sometimes you just need to see it. You need to hear it. You need to see somebody say what you want to say, but don't necessarily, have the heart quite yet to say it, or don't know how to say it. So to me, and I've been talking about Black manhood and the warrior aspect and wanting to inspire that, wanting to emphasize that, right? I think that's what this brother resonates and stands for. So I'm going to play a couple of clips of this, but this whole video is on YouTube, the African Digital Library. I want to make sure I give them credit. Hopefully they don't have a problem with me sharing part of this video. And I want to direct you to their page. So that's plug as well, a little lightweight commercial. But I want to play a few clips of this, and then I have 2 more slides after this, and I'm going to let you guys go. This is why it's good that I broke this up into 3 pieces, because I didn't want to do a 3-hour video. I didn't even expect this one to be this long, but I never do. Okay, so here we go.
Burkina Faso in October 2023, Captain Ibrahim Traore pledged to dramatically improve the security situation in Burkina Faso and uplift the social economic life of the Burkinabe people. Seeking new alliance and throwing to the bin the old French alliance that had milked the economy of the country for decades and orchestrated many complex security situations to keep the West African state on its knees. Many people around the world could have felt he was joking, especially given the dirty record of African puppet leaders who simply promised their people while eating with the Western colonial robber.
This is the language of the person who created the video, okay? It's for context. I know you know that, but just saying.
On the same table. Captain Ibrahim Traore is a different breed of leaders. Within the 2 years, his government has launched plans to develop a holistic railway network across the entire country. The project, termed FASO Rail, will link all the provincial capitals across the country to boost trade and economic growth. This amazing project is planned to stimulate trade, improve transportation infrastructure, and reduce the cost of goods and services across the country. The project, that is 75% government-owned and 25% open to private investment, will establish a railway manufacturing and assembly plant in Bobo Dioulasso. The project will also see Burkina Faso manufacture train wagons, produce and lay train rails, and process steel waste in the country. Amazingly, the government of Captain Ibrahim Traore aims to complete the project with 18 months with a total budget of 70 billion CFA francs. This project is projected to boost trade, create jobs, and improve the overall quality of life of the Burkinabe people. Over the 2 years, the government of Burkina Faso, under the guidance of Captain Ibrahim Traore, also launched the Burkina Faso Atomic Energy Agency. The agency aims to strengthen the country's energy sufficiency, as announced by President Ibrahim Traore during the Africa-Russia Summit in 2023 at St. Petersburg. This new investment in atomic energy will see the West African country construct a nuclear plant to reduce reliance on fossil fuels and traditional sources of energy while accelerating industrial development, improving access to electricity to thousands of Burkinabes who have lived in darkness for decades, and overall economic growth of the country. Burkina Faso has partnered with the Russian atomic corporation, Rosatom, to realize this huge dream. The corporation aims to utilize nuclear energy to improve the country's energy production, healthcare, scientific research, and industrial applications, while enhancing Burkina Faso's capacity to manage nuclear technology safely and effectively, paving the way for substantial economic growth and technological advancement. Imagine how a 30-year-old president now becomes the champion of Africa's nuclear energy, when we have had puppets ruling African countries for more than 30 or 40 years without anything to show to their people. The government of Burkina Faso, under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traore, is undertaking the development of an integrated pharmaceutical park.
All right, so let me just go do that.
After being sworn in as the president.
Yep, got it. Just one more short part of this video. Let me see.
The overall quality of life of the people of Burkina Faso. Following years of insurgency in the country, most of the upcountry sides of the country had been cut off from the capital. Captain Ibrahim Traore has committed to redeveloping the country's infrastructure, even in the areas that were cut off and devastated by insurgents, using military convoys backed by engineering brigades to open roads to countryside locations like Djibo, which was once totally cut off from mainland Burkina Faso. Other key road projects include the Ouagadougou-Kaya highways and Ouagadougou-Bobo-Dioulasso highways that will boost the country's trade with its neighbors. During his speech at the Africa-Russia Summit in St. Petersburg, in 2023, Captain Ibrahim Traore highlighted the need for food security for the people of Africa, if Africa was to compete favorably with the rest of the world.
So I'm going to stop there. And when I say, is Africa under divine judgment, I know, like, you know, Africa's not just Africa. People who live in Kenya or Nigeria, they don't call themselves Africans. They call themselves Nigerians, right? So I know that that's like painting with a very large brush. I think spiritually, though, if we're not looking at what's happening in the world and quantifying where we are in the world, you know, whether it's in the Congo or whether it's in America, like, why did I come from a family that's in the Congo during this time, during this heightened warfare, or, you know, Europe or South America or America? Like, why am I here in this particular place watching and participating in this part of this unfolding? Because there's some major, major, major shit going down in the world on a spiritual level, right? And so, to reiterate the points about the savior complex, which I love, that's why this brother is, you know, so powerful and so inspiring, because he's doing the things that need to be done, but also inspiring the, you know what I mean, pushing forward. That's why I say a good man versus a king versus God, right? Pushing the whole entire culture forward, pushing the business arenas, which I'm going to read this about this electric car, which is so dope in just a second, from Burkina Faso, but moving the ball forward in all of these different areas, which I feel like they said he was building a railroad of network to link all of the capitals, and that would expand trade and transportation, goods and services. He was also creating jobs to build train wagons and rails. That made me think about the Japanese creating the railroad system in America and that whole bit, right? And like, that's a whole infrastructure and ecosystem of transportation that needs to happen all across the continent. How much undeveloped, land is there? And I love the fact that Earn Your Leisure is building and developing land. My brother Dre Taylor is in Ghana. I think Earn Your Leisure is in Ghana as well. But creating and building and developing land. Professor James Small has a hotel in Ghana, I'm pretty sure, right? So it's happening. And the beautiful and so I'm here for that 100%. And I also again feel like the spirit and the essence of power and of that connectivity to what it means to say the motherland. That's the big deal. That's a big responsibility. So Burkina Faso has made a bold entrance into the electric vehicle market with the launch of its first fully indigenous EV, the Itua. Hope I'm saying that right. This innovation, unveiled recently, represents a significant step forward for the country and the continent in embracing sustainable mobility solutions. Manufactured at a cutting-edge facility in Ouagadougou, 2000, one of Burkina Faso's prominent districts, the Itua boasts remarkable specifications. The vehicle offers a range of 330 kilometers on a single charge, and it can recharge in just 30 minutes. Powered entirely by electricity and solar energy. That's like, wow, okay. The Itua emphasizes eco-friendliness and positions itself as a key player in Africa's growing EV market. The introduction of Itua comes at a time when Africa's EV market is gaining traction. According to projections from Motor Intelligence, the market is expected to grow from 15.8 billion in 2024 to 25.4 billion in 2029 by 2029. While global EV sales are dominated by China, Europe, and the US, accounting for 95% of sales in 2023, several African nations are making strides in adopting and producing electric vehicles. And so I wanted to end with on a high note because we're not painting with a broad brush at all. This is really headline news. So this isn't even any sort of, major assessment or analysis. I'm just really talking about the things that are happening in these places and trying to give it some sort of larger vantage point and perspective, because this is going to be important for us to maintain, our calm and our sanity and our peace in the midst of all of the stuff going on in the world, because it's traumatizing when people put up stuff on, this particular thread, which I just screenshotted. But it was like 10 videos of like full-on warfare, people running and gunshots, and you can see the picture there. I mean, this right. And so you watching, you looking at these videos, and it's just back to back, and it's it's traumatizing and it's triggering, and none of us should get used to this. And then the passage says, racism in real time, war rages in Goma, DR Congo for minerals for the tech industry. The world remains silent. But if this was Ukraine, Palestine, or LA, that's the thing that I don't like. Because there's real suffering happening in those places. I'm right here in LA. I just went through major trauma from being a part of that experience. And I was not in the direct line of fire, but I was close enough. Too close for comfort. And then to know that this level of damage to the earth is happening in such a close proximity, and the lives taken and the damage and the turmoil from one of the most beautiful places in the world. Of course the world should be paying attention to it. Of course the world should be paying attention to Palestine. Ukraine is another subject, but we don't have time for that. But even still, the world should be paying attention to what's really going on there. There's a whole city called Altadena, California that burned to a crisp here, that is a predominantly Black and a very historically prominent Black city in this area. And there is a untold number of people, Black people in particular, that have strong histories and legacies in that area that have lost everything. Of course the world should care. And I'm not just talking about when the fire was all tantalizing on the screen. I'm talking about now that they're trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do. Just have to say this because this is not necessary. You already traumatizing me with the video you posted, and I'm watching that, and I do care, and I am talking about it. But like, where's the compassion? All of this is a lot of real, you know what I mean? It's a certain type of energy directed at people in America. And you might feel some type of way about the government, and you may feel some type of way about what America has done in your country and other countries, but the majority of people here are trying to find our way and figure this shit out and not become victims of those same people, directly or indirectly, that you are dealing with or experiencing. The population of the continent of Africa is 1.373 billion. Imagine the roar if all of African nations would be focusing on what is happening in the Congo. If all of the media outlets in the different African nations were talking about this. If the great military minds were talking about how to come in and settle this situation. Who's the strongest military presence in Africa? Which nation has the strongest, most viable military? And I'm only asking that not to emphasize violence, but violence usually can only be quelled by violence. In a situation like what's happening in the Congo, yes, this is a military situation that needs to get handled. Maybe diplomatically, maybe in another type of way, but it can't continue to go on, can it? So who's the greatest military stronghold in the continent of Africa? Who's the most successful economically in the continent of Africa? Who's the most successful in terms of tourism in the continent of Africa? Who's doing the most trade with other nations in Africa in terms of agriculture and husbandry? Producing on a scale that you can feed your nation, and then producing on a scale that you're feeding other nations around the continent. Because Africa, with the close proximity to the nations, and I don't see how there could be any issues. It's the mindset that has to be checked. It's the spirit that has to be checked. The connectivity, the source. The people are the real most powerful natural resource. That's the conversation that's not being had. Who's most prominent in the continent in terms of the spiritual wealth of Africa? Where are the shamans and the priestesses at that people can go to, the healers and the medicine mothers and fathers? Where are they most prominent at? What country? What nation? Where's the pilgrimage to the retreats to those areas? Who's prominent in the continent in terms of mental health? Dealing with the trauma of what, for instance, what we just talked about with Rwanda. Was there ever any mass psychological reconstruction or focus on, hey, we all just got super duper terrorized by people who look just like us? Men who looked, I'm assuming it was all men, right? That's another thing about the frequency. Because from the perception that we all got from the movie and from the mainstream aspects, that it was only men that were doing the tremendous the killing and the maiming and all of the savageness that came with those murders. Was it only men? So does that mean there's a certain frequency that who manufactures cars, furniture, appliances in the continent? Which nation is most viable for that? Or are they all most viable for that? Maybe all of them have strong, prominent, you know what I mean, distribution, etc. Who are the builders with the growth and construction? Where's, you know what I mean? Like, this is all of these people are the answer to the issues. And in a way, I kind of feel like, duh, everybody should know that. But then in another way, it's like, why? Because we don't see the people as the real powerful natural resource, because we're all really kind of disconnected from source. We have lost our way in terms of how we project and see value, the value of God, the value of humanity, the value of compassion. I mean, the dude said, you know, in the video, he was like, yeah, I mean, this is something for them, but in terms of everybody else, this could really be an issue. because we need our phones. It wouldn't be an issue if the Congolese people were in a position of power in terms of all of the mining there, the lithium and, you know, all of these different natural resources that we're saying that the alphabet boys are raping and robbing them for. It wouldn't be an issue, right? If the Congolese people were being paid sufficient wages and that the money distribution was going back into the community and the government and it was helping build infrastructure and not creating war and disparity, right? There wouldn't be an issue then, right? Okay, so then the onus is on the Congolese people, whether it's the leadership now, whether it's the uprising leadership, whether it's the children, whether it's the children of Rwanda, that spirit, that intention. They talked about gold. I've been hearing so many stories about gold being readily available in different areas of the continent. But then they have to have China or Russia come in because they have the tools and utilities to actually mine it for mass, you know, production, consumption, sale, etc., whatever. How is it that after all of this time, we still in the continent haven't created the ingenuity to be able to do that ourselves? And maybe we have. Somebody can correct me in the comments. So I'm just saying, the population of the continent is 1.373 billion. Timeline 2025 to 2030. Satan is on 10. Where is the continent? Where is Africa in terms of the spiritual dynamics of where we are and where we're headed? I'm not just talking about electric cars. I'm not just talking about cryptocurrency and accepting artificial intelligence, because we're in a spiritual war. And we said it was the motherland, right? And the globe, for all in particular purposes, can be considered a motherless child. That's how it's feeling out here right now. I feel like a motherless child. That's the poet. I mean, you know, that's the poet in me. But I'm just saying, I keep saying, I wish these people would just leave us alone. That's the type of shit you say to your mother. In the most vulnerable and real moments. I wish these people would just leave us alone. And then mom comes through and puts 10 toes down and makes the situation become what it needs to be. Do we still have the love and protection and guidance of Mother Nature, Mama Africa, the matrilineal, matriarchal, all that stuff, the things that we tout and represent during Black History Month, and when we study the ancient kings and queens, and you know, the fact that it was a matriarchal society and the African queens were always next to the kings, are the African women across the continent standing next to the African men now in harmony and love and being upheld and seen as sacred? That's another conversation for another time. So I said a lot. I talked for an hour and almost 30 minutes. But I think I made my point. And much love to all of my followers in the motherland, because I know you guys, y'all always shout me out and you're always in the chat and comments. So I love and appreciate you guys. And you know, I'm just here to, there was a, well, I'm going to read that in the other video. I'll save that for later. So, but yeah, I like the fact that we can sit down and have these type of conversations about what's happening in the news, and we're looking at what's happening on the ground, but we're also striving to, when I say we're, I'm saying, I know I'm the one doing the talking and informing, but I also know that I have very highly intelligent people that are listening this, that can take this information and transmute it to, you know what I mean? Make it a magic in their own way. And again, to inspire brothers and sisters in the heart of Africa to become the answer to the problem. What's the solution? What's the solution? Everybody always says that. If I had $1 for every time somebody said that shit to me, you are the solution. Okay? So my campaign ends February 7th. This is part 1 of Headline News episode 67. Thank you guys so much for your time and attention. I'm probably not going to be able to monetize this video, so show me some love via Cash App. Show me some love via supporting my books. Show me some love via supporting my campaign, especially if you watch this video all the way through to the end. ZaZaAli.com is my website. I will see you beautiful people very soon. Peace and love.